The material that, in case the moisture had settled out to the bottom, we emptied the bag upside down, and so we have a pretty homogeneous sample. It looks to be about, we tested it at 77%, but that was a real quick test, 77% moisture content. Okay, Bill, yeah, go ahead and start scooping some in. We'll see if this is going to work at all. I'm expecting maybe it's going to just start spinning in the inlet hopper and not feeding. Go ahead. You can see the screw is feeding some material in because it becomes visible. We're just filling an empty press now. Unfortunately, in a small 4-inch press like this, the inlet hopper tapers down. That is, we're going from a wide down to a narrow 4-inch. Okay, here we're getting out press liquor. And first moisture comes out wet. While this is looking awfully good, that is sure, we've got a lot of solids in the press liquor, but that happens with all coffee grounds. I didn't expect this to happen. It's working. We'll see if it keeps on working. I think I'm getting less press liquor than I was before. Have to let it run long enough to get a sample. This cake looks awfully wet to me. It's not a lighter colored brown. And my press liquor flow looks pretty small. Of course, this material is relatively dry. I will catch a sample and squeeze it. Oh, I can still get water out of this, so something's wrong there. And I'm getting very little water out there. My cake is still wet. Let it run a little bit longer. And my flow is diminishing down to nothing. That is flow of press liquor. My cake is no longer coming out. I was all set to raise that air pressure and squeeze tighter because my cake was coming out wet. That I grabbed with my fist. But that didn't do any. Yeah. So this is what I'm afraid would happen. In case we have a bridge, Bill is breaking the bridge. Let's see if maybe they're just tunneled. And it's looking like that was the problem, Bill. The press. It was just bridged over, nothing was feeding in. So, and my cake is coming out again. Keep that up, and we'll get a sample of the cake pretty soon and see if I can, okay, take another cake sample, squeeze it, and I'm still getting moisture between my fingers. That's about where this material started. So, cake's coming out rapidly. That's a high flow of press cake. And my cake is, again, I can still squeeze plenty of water out. You still have material in there and you've broken the bridge, huh? Okay. I'm going to run the air pressure up. That was at 20 psi. I'll take that high on the high side, go to 60. And Bill has continued to break the bridge down at 50 psi. Let's see how this works at 50 psi. And have to give it a little bit of time here to still be watering. And so now I'll catch another sample. Cake is not coming out as fast as it was, and I've still got a lot of moisture between my fingers. So even with 50 psi, I'm not getting the water out. And we've overcome the bridging. Okay, I'm going to have to change the screen in this press and go to a conventional opening of 15 thousandths of an inch. Okay, this is the screw that was in the press. We elected to change the screw in this press. We went to one with a tapered shaft, and we're feeding in right now just the material. We rehydrated the cake, that is, we mixed the pressed liquor that goes in that bucket and the pressed cake that goes in this bucket. We mixed them and we're feeding that back into the press just to get it filled up. We're going the same 28 RPM. I have lowered the air pressure back down to 20 PSI. That's my air regulator I was just looking at. And, oh, got to run the cone in. And that area's cake was just starting to come out as I did that. Okay, we're getting liquid out. Getting liquid out towards the discharge end. That's because the shaft of the screw now tapers up at the discharge end. If this keeps up, we're in great shape. I suspect it won't. I'm a bit of a pessimist here. This material is acting too much like spent tea. Spent tea with a lot of stems does great. Spent ground tea leaves does very badly. Anyway, it's looking good there. No cake yet. Bad sign. Bill is continuing to break the bridge. That's something we have to do in a small lab press. Occasionally in a 6-inch press, but bigger than that, it's not necessary. No cake has come out, so I'm going to open the cone and see if anything will come out here. Material's starting to come out. I'm hoping if I feed a plug of material out by having the cone open, the press will start working. So far, that's not the case. That is, the material is not feeding continuously out of the press. I don't have a flow of press cake here. My flow of press liquor is tapered off. It drains out the bottom back here, and you can see it draining through a hole in the table into a 5-gallon pail. The cake, it may get started and start flowing through, but right now it's looking bad. Some cake breaking off and falling into our pan. We had quite a pan full of cake from the previous test. What I'm going to do is snug that cone in just barely. Lowest air pressure that'll move it in. Okay, I've barely got enough air pressure to move that along. You can see it moving. And that's all the pressure I'm going to use in this test. I'm getting a lot of fines through the screen. You can see them. Usually at this point I say that looks worse than it is, but this one is pretty bad. I say it looks worse than it is because the fines will tend to pile up on the screen. You see them sitting there and think that that's the normal flow, but that's just an accumulation. So what I'm looking at down here is it's flowing, but it's bad. It's very thick with fines. There you can see steady flow of butt. The reason we're getting this is because of the taper of the shaft. It's pushing the coffee out against the screen. At the same time, it's not letting it go through because I'm not getting much cake out here. And so this does not look good. The screen has a 15 thousandths opening, and if I collect some of this press cake, it is warm to the touch. That is, there's enough friction going on in here that it's heating up the press cake. And if I squeeze, no matter how tight I squeeze, there's no film between my fingers any place. This cake has been properly dewatered. That's the good news. The bad news is the flow is not enough to justify the press. So I need something that will feed better in a higher quantity, but with this much dewatering action. Not sure if you can see it in there. The material should be flowing to the left into the press, but you notice that the material is going to the right, away from the screen. The screw just can't push it in there. I just set the VFD for 120 hertz. We're now running probably 56 RPM, close to some number like that, double the normal speed. That's the first fresh material that we've added in. So this is ultra high speed. The air pressure is still barely 1 psi. We're doing all the squeezing with the tighter compression of the flights. You can see here, they're that tight at the end. Back in the beginning of the screw, it's quite a bit less compression. So we get compression by tightening the pitch of the flights, and the shaft, which you see is a constant diameter in this screw, tapers in the shaft of the press we have. But even at 120 hertz, double the normal speed, we're not tripping out on overload, we're not drawing too many amps, but the press liquor is terrible. That is, it's thick with solids, the flow is minimal, the cake coming out is still quite warm and quite dry. The shaft with a less taper to it might help, but basically I need something that will feed the material into the, oh, on this other side, just ahead of the resistor teeth, you can see how the sludge has accumulated that we push through the screen. Starting to steam? Yeah. Yep, steam bubbles. Look at that. Yeah, steam coming off. Frictional heating.
What if we slow it down?
I'll slow it down. Okay, this is 12 hertz. We're running probably about 5 RPM. You can see the shaft is barely going around. That's very slow for such a small 4-inch press. See what happens. Doesn't look that much different, but I'm definitely getting some more cake out. Here's the ones we've been using, but here you see screw presses. Fortunately, Vincent has over 200 screw presses in our rental fleet, and this one over here may be the one we need. It is a twin screw press. The characteristic of the twin screw press is that it is positive feeding, and if anything will make this stuff move into a press, it is our twin screw press. I've been talking about tapered shafts, and there was the standard. We're right next to, there is a tapered shaft for you. You can see we at the inlet, we start with a constant shaft and we taper it up, twice the shorter. Here's one that they're building right now, a smaller press, 16-inch I think. And again, you can see how the tapered shaft has been built up. The twin screw press that we were just looking at has tapered shafts in it. We have to be desperate to chance using all of our material just in one press, but it's going to probably take all our sample to get this press working. I have slowed it down. It has twin screws. You can see 2 of them turning there. And a cone, so you can see the discharge here to some extent. 2 screws and a discharge cone, and starting to get a little squeezing here. These have a mild taper to the shaft, but they do have some taper. We're still feeding in the material we started with. Put the cone back in. Slowed the press down to, I think it measured 5.5 RPM. It has a belt drive. And let's see what the feeding looks like. Let it feed itself down, Bill, and want to confirm that these twin screws do feed this material in.
At least it smells good.
It does smell good. Oh, this press had some corn germ.
Some of it out.
But so we'll get a bit of corn germ with our coffee. But you can see it's got very positive feeding. Sorry for the long video. That is good feeding action that we're watching there. Still not getting out. I haven't started to squeeze this material. I haven't filled up the press enough to do it. Okay, that's the end of our first pail. And